How's it going, everybody? eCom Tommy here with another video coming at you guys. And in this video, I want to talk about your first negative feedback and how to remove it. It might not be your first negative feedback, but a lot of people I see in these Facebook groups are always talking about how they just got a negative feedback, what to do, how to get rid of it. They're freaking out and it's the end of the world. So I want to address this issue. I want to talk about that in this video. And if you do like the sound of that, then please be sure to give this video a thumbs up so we can get it out to everybody out there that's going to complain or, get worried when they get their first negative feedback like this person down here. So whether it's your first one, your 50th one, or your 100th one, the process is pretty much the same no matter what. And that's what we're going to be going over in this video. Whether it's somebody that has a pretty reasonable negative feedback here, like this person, I've bought the XL Deluxe Rabbit Cage twice now, and both were damaged. Pretty reasonable in my opinion. Or somebody like this that says, item has not arrived as of 5:30 p.m. today. It's pretty crazy of a customer to really care that much about the exact time. But no matter what, there's usually something you can do about it, and that's what we'll be talking about inside of my computer right now. So thank you guys. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you inside my computer. All right, so here we are in front of my computer, and the first thing to do when you get a negative feedback is to not panic. Whether it's your first one, your second one, I mean, over time, eventually you get used to them. They don't happen too often if you are running a very streamlined business. If you are giving great customer service, this should not be a huge thing, but there are outlier cases where people are going to leave you negative feedback, whether you had communication with them, whether you didn't have communication with them, and you can't really avoid it. So don't panic. This is going to happen. This happens with everybody, so you're not the only one out there. So like I said, this usually stems from a lack of communication, whether you're just not giving good customer service, or if there was an issue and you just didn't go out of your way to really address the issue before it happened, whether that's, the item actually never got delivered and you never checked the tracking number, you didn't follow any of the tracking on it, and the customer never got it and they were like, oh, what happened? Then they leave you negative feedback first before they even contact you. Another thing about this is it could be left by accident. I actually did get a negative feedback recently that the buyer said, oh, I left it by accident. I meant to leave this on another item and I accidentally left it on yours. It's very rare that could happen, but that is a thing that can happen and does happen from time to time. So you want to make sure that it's not to panic, because it could actually just be an accident. And as I always say, customer service is king. You want to address a customer's issues before it shows up, before it arises, before they actually message you about it, because if they contact you first, then that doesn't look as good on your company as if you reached out to them first and then you said, hey, this is the issue, this is how we're going to address it, and don't worry, we have this under control. It looks a lot more professional, and it is a lot more professional, honestly. And I've noticed that's one of the biggest issues and one of the best ways to run your business effectively and not get negative feedback. And you want to act sooner rather than later. If you notice somehow like 30 days later that you got a negative feedback and you try to contact the customer or anything like that, they're going to be less likely to answer. It shows that you're unprofessional because you didn't respond within like 30 days or even 5 days or a week. You want to contact them about the negative feedback if you do try to get it removed within 1 day, 24 hours, 48 hours max if it's a weekend, and really just try to get on top of it as soon as possible. So let's get into the next slide here. What are the things you can do? So there's two main things you can do to get rid of your negative feedback if you did get one. So firstly, the number one way to get rid of a negative feedback is to not get negative feedback. But like I said, some of it's unavoidable. A lot of it you are definitely because of just lack of communication, not running a very streamlined business and everything like that. So say you are doing all of that. What are the two things you can do to get rid of a negative feedback? Number one is you're going to want to call eBay and just present your case to them. Represent yourself as to why you should get the negative feedback removed. And we'll talk about reasons in the next slide as to why you can do that. And the second is you're just going to reach out to the customer, reason with them in a reasonable manner. They're all human. I mean, on Amazon, I go as far as calling them, but for eBay, I don't call any customers really. You could even go that far. Reason with them. Give them whatever it is, solve their issues, and then ask them to remove it. So it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, and there are some ways to do it that I'll go and talk about in the next two slides. So either they remove it for you, they go in, they remove the feedback, and it's all good and gold after that, or you submit a feedback revision, which I will also talk about in the next slide. So those are the two main things. There's really nothing else you can do. But it's pretty simple and straightforward after this. So when you're calling eBay, what are the reasons for eBay to remove a negative feedback? They used to, I mean, I don't get that many negative feedback anymore. A lot of the negative feedback I would get was back when we were doing bulk Amazon onto eBay, automated drop shipping, thousands of items in your store. You don't know what the items in your store are. You're selling mainly crap. You're not paying attention in your store. It's just a terribly run store. That's one of the main issues why I was getting so many negative feedback, because you just weren't giving the customer a good customer experience from the get-go. But now when I have highly well-sourced items, I'm taking out problem items from my store all the time. It's really well run customer service wise. I don't get that many. But what are the reasons why you can remove it, or why eBay would remove it? If you call them, they're going to remove it. Number one is if they're being rude or swearing at you. If there's any swears whatsoever in the messaging, whether it's in the feedback or the messaging sequence that you've had, if you've had one with the customer, then automatically they're most likely going to get rid of it. I mean, this is as of the last time I got one removed for swearing, but I don't see that changing anytime soon or at all. If they're being rude, if they're just being unreasonable or swearing at you, then it's a no-brainer in that point. eBay, it's very easy for eBay to remove it at that point. Number two here is you can prove that the buyer is wrong. So whether say somebody say somebody leaves a negative feedback because they say that the item never was received, and they're just messaging you back and forth, never got the item, and then you're like, here's the tracking, here's the proof, and then you prove that and they still leave you a negative feedback, then you can just go to eBay, say, hey, this is the proof that it got delivered, and please get rid of it. So they will, most likely they will. Sometimes they'll ask you a few other questions. Maybe they'll tell you to reach out the buyer one last time, and if they don't respond, then then they'll remove it. There's fringe cases, and it's really all about getting the right customer service rep. So I do want to talk about that a bit. Let's go through all four, and then I'll talk about that afterwards. So number three is going to be feedback extortion, and that's basically the customer saying they will leave you a negative feedback. So if they leave you or they say they're going to leave a negative feedback, that's in the messaging. They're going, oh, well, I'm going to leave a negative feedback if you don't do this, or if you don't do this, I'm going to leave a negative feedback. That's feedback extortion. That's basically the customer pressuring you into trying to change, do something for them, give them something for free or anything like that. And eBay does not like that at all. So if there is any bit of feedback extortion, which sometimes you could kind of bait out of the customer, but I don't really highly suggest doing that, then that is one way that they can actually get rid of it as well. And then if you, I misspelled it here, if you win a case, not if you will a case, if you win a case, if somebody had already left you a negative feedback and then they open up an items not received case, you win that case, then eBay will in fact get rid of the negative feedback about that case. So if you ever won an items not received case, it usually will say at the end, hey, you won this case. Any comments or any feedback related to this case has been removed. So that's one great thing too, because if you're running a well-run store, if you are providing and keeping track of everything, providing proof, then you should easily be able to get rid of them. So that's why I get like one in every maybe 200, I'll get a negative feedback, 200 feedbacks, I'll get a negative feedback. And it's very rare that it's much higher than that, because if you run a well-run store, then you will not get very many of these. So another thing I didn't put here, but it's about the customer service rep. If you have a customer service rep that you can tell is a stickler right off the bat, and you're not vibing with them very well, and you want to actually get this feedback removed, either hang up or try to go through the whole process, see if they get rid of it. If they don't, I've literally hung up before, called again, and got the feedback removed from the next person. So it's really all about who you actually are talking to. Same thing goes with limit raises. If you're asking for a limit raise, somebody doesn't want to give it to you, then you just call the next person. Usually you can get it. So moving on from that, it's reasoning with the customer. This is if eBay doesn't actually want it. If it doesn't meet any of the criteria of calling eBay. Calling eBay is number one. Reasoning with the customer. It's pretty self-explanatory here. Something that you did has made the customer upset. Whether you did it, FedEx did it, anybody did it, they're upset. You need to find the root of the issue. So figure out the root of the issue and then offer a solid solution to their problem. So if it's broken, offer them a reshipment, but contact your supplier first, see what your supplier says. If they say, oh, we'll reship it for you, then why not just give them a free reshipment? It's pretty easy. A partial refund, I do this all the time. Usually I go to the supplier first. Hey, this is damaged, here's pictures. Can you give me a $20 partial refund? Supplier's okay about it. Then I usually offer the buyer a $15 partial refund if I get 20. If they take it, I made $5 extra. But that also gives me bartering room where I don't have to lose money. If they don't take it, then you offer them 20. If they accept it, then you're good. And then if not, offer them a free return. You can offer them returns with the FedEx goes to their house and picks it up. Anything to make it easy for them, just offer them a solid solution to their problem. After that, make sure they're satisfied. Make sure they agree with your solution and that they're okay and they're happy with what actually has happened. Make sure that it has been finished. It has, been returned. Your reshipment is on the way. You have provided the partial refund. And then after that, they seem satisfied, so you might as well ask them to remove the feedback. After that, you can ask them to remove it personally themselves, or if you just Google it, eBay feedback removal, there is a feedback revision request. And if you have negative feedback, you can ask them to revise their feedback and actually go in there and I think it sends them a message or something, and then they'll respond to it and they'll get rid of it. So in conclusion, you will get a negative feedback. If you're selling on eBay and you don't get a negative feedback, you're not doing enough sales and you're not doing well enough. So you need to be getting negative feedback every once in a while because it means you're doing enough sales that you've gotten a crazy customer, which is every once in a while, where they're just going to leave you negative feedback, whether they didn't message you, whether anything happened. It doesn't matter. You will get negative feedback as long as you're selling on eBay and you're doing a lot of volume. And it's nothing to worry about. Everybody gets negative feedback. Feedback score, as long as it's above like 97.5%, I've never seen anybody really that worried about it. I've never seen it really affect sales, whether I'm sniping from people. I've always had mine around above 99%, but if it's 99.5 or if it's 99.7, it doesn't truly matter that much. People aren't going to go out of their way and say, oh, it's 0.2% off. I don't want to buy this person's item. It's not the biggest deal. But you want to know your rights as an eBay seller. As you're selling on eBay, you want to know what you can do to help yourself, whether that's calling eBay saying, oh, they swore at me, calling eBay saying they feedback extorted me, anything like that. You want to know your rights and actually execute upon them. You want to exhaust all possibilities. Call eBay first. If they say no, then go into contacting the customer. Contact them more than once. Contact them twice. Possibly even call them if you care that bad. The only time I'd go that far is if it was a brand new account, I made mistakes, and then somehow I have like 75% because I had only 4 feedback and one of them was negative. That's the only time I go that far. But go pretty far. Try your hardest. And take action for the best results. Take action fast. You want to do it as soon as possible. You don't want to wait, and you don't want to wait a week, and the customer's just going to move on. They're going to leave a negative feedback on somebody else's by then. So also, I do just want to say, if you run a well-run store, a lot of this is not an issue. If you don't sell breakable items, if you don't sell items that have terrible feedback or reviews from the supplier's website, if you're selling an item from Walmart that has a 2-star review and like 1,000 reviews, that's not good. It's not a good item. And what makes you think it's going to be better on eBay than on Walmart? So you want to just avoid the very common sense, easy things to avoid. And that's everything that I teach inside of my course. So if you are interested in any further eBay dropshipping training, we do have a free mini course down below. And we do have a paid course as well that will give you everything that you need to know to actually succeed with eBay dropshipping in 2019 and into 2020. So in conclusion, please post your questions below. If you have any questions, any fringe cases, the funniest negative feedback you've ever received, I would love to hear it because there are some good ones out there. Don't be afraid to ask any questions. If you found this helpful, please be sure to subscribe. I post videos twice a week, or at least I attempt to, and then 1 live a week. And then make sure to hit the bell notification button. It is the only way after you subscribe to get notified of all of my videos the second that they post, so you can be one of the first people to actually see it. If you like what you saw, please give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. We can get it out to as many people as possible, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.